Charlotte Center Forum featuring William McNeely. If this is your first time to the forum, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. We have a great night ahead. I'm Mark Paris. I'm the founder and executive director of the Charlotte Center for the Humanities and Civic Imagination. A few things about us. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping our community flourish. We do that by bringing people together to explore community issues through the lens of the humanities. That's poetry, literature, history, religion, philosophy, the arts. The humanities offer a treasure trove and method of understanding the human experience and invite us to what is good and true. Our programming seeks to strengthen civic bonds and spur innovation by connecting the humanities and our life together. We launched in 2020. We are in our 4th year of programming. We host the Forum Speaker Series, which you will experience tonight, the What's the Big Idea contest that invites residents from across the region to share ideas on how to make Charlotte greater and more beautiful, and the Charlotte Ideas Festival, which is 6 nights of presentations and panels and performances during Charlotte Shout. Help me welcome Tony and Lavelle to the stage.
Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take your broken wings and learn to fly. All your life you have only waited for this moment to rise. Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take your sunken eyes and learn to see. All your life we have all been waiting for your wings to set you free. We've all waited for your wings to set you free. Blackbird fly, blackbird fly into the dark and bright night.
William and I have known each other for 40 years. For 40 years, he's been a part of my life, and we've been on this journey together. So we met at North Carolina State in 1984. I was a freshman. In 1991, we got married, had 2 kids, Jessica and Josh, and we have a son-in-law, Trey, who's very wonderful. And in a couple of months, William can add to his resume, he'll be a grandfather. He has a baby girl coming. So when I think about the transitions that he's made in his life, he's got a very diverse resume. From Apple Computer to entrepreneurship, starting businesses, starting a small design business, teaching kids, coaching kids. It's just really diverse, and I've learned a lot from him, from watching him go through all those different journeys. But in 40 years, you have a lot of peaks, you have a lot of valleys. We've had a lot of high peaks, and we've had some low valleys, and one of the lowest points in William's life was when this idea came to him. When it seems like he should have been thinking of nothing else but how to live, how to get through this idea came to him. And that idea was Do Greater Charlotte. And through faith, through perseverance, through determination, I watched him grind and grind and grind until an idea became a reality. And that's basically what he wants to do for young kids, the under-resourced kids in Charlotte. He wants to see their ideas become realities. And sometimes you have to go through struggles in order to be able to come out on the other side and know that you can sow that seed into somebody else's life. And that's what William has done. So he asked me one day last week, after 40 years, he asked me, have you taken some notes on how you're going to introduce me? And I'm thinking to myself, 40 years, dude? I should be able to do this with my eyes closed. So I would like to welcome William because his journey is tremendous. He has things in his story is so encouraging. It encourages others. It'll encourage each one of you today. And I would just like to ask you to just listen with your heart and just know that something special is coming, because the story that he has and the person he is special, and you're going to receive from that. So, William?
I might just sit back down now. I don't know if I need to be up here, but I'm excited to be here. Thanks for being here, for one. I love this place. Mark talked about us having this conversation here. I love Ray Ward. I love what it stands for. The creativity just oozes out of this place. And so every time that I'm here, I get excited. I get excited about telling the story that I have. I get excited about creating things, and I get excited about helping people. And hopefully I'll get a chance to talk through some of those things tonight and give you a sense of who I am, where I've come from, what I'm doing now, how excited I am about what I'm doing now, and maybe some of that will rub off on you, and that you will go out now and try to continue to make an impact on the lives of other people as well. But thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Mark, for allowing me to be here. Thank you, family and friends that are here as well. I like to have a casual conversation. I'm not a big speech writer or, reading things. I just like to talk. I like to talk about what I do, what the impact that I make every single day, and how I got here. So I'm gonna pull up a chair a little bit. Mark told me I could do this. And just really sit down and talk to you about who I am, about what I do. And so, as Sheila mentioned, I am the founder and CEO of Do Greater Charlotte. As an organization, I'll give you a little bit more about what that is, but I really want to kind of tell you a little bit about what 15 years ago, in my mind, what I was thinking. So I'm a little older, about 15 years ago. I'm starting to think about what my legacy is. What am I going to do with my life? And I started writing this why statement. A lot of folks probably get to that point in their lives and they start to say, the Simon Sinek, what's your why and all these things. So I started to look at, for me, what were the things that ran throughout my life, the last 40, 50 years? What was it that I actually enjoyed doing? And as my wife said, Sheila talked about this whole idea of potential. So when I started to look back, I started to see things that, I coached football. I was in leadership. I did this. I helped people. I worked for several nonprofits. And there was always this red thread. It was this commonality around helping people reach their full potential. And I wrote down this statement. I said, I help people reach their full potential through leadership, focus, and vision so that they can do greater things to impact the lives of others. And I wrote that, I added the last part, so they can do greater things later as I started to understand. But I started to see this idea around potential. What is it and what does it mean to recognize potential? And so in my entire life, I really wanted to focus on that. So this question started to come up. We as an organization, Do Greater Charlotte focuses on what we call upward mobility. But this question one day came up, where does up start? What does that mean? Where is it that we get this idea of us becoming something that we are today? And I really didn't know where that was. So I started to look back in my life and started to say, okay, where was it for me? And I started to look back and started in elementary school. I remember very vividly when I was in elementary school, my family, my mom is here over in the corner. I grew up on the west side of Charlotte. And we grew up poor, started in Belvedere Homes, which is now torn down, not there off Rosses Ferry Road. There's a lot of different things happening on Rosses Ferry Road right now, a lot different than what was there when we were growing up. But I moved from Rosses Ferry Road, from Belvedere Homes, the projects there, and moved over into Revolution Park, Clinton Park, all on west side of Charlotte. And as I started to grow up, I didn't necessarily know we didn't have a lot. I just loved things. I used to always ask the questions, what if? What if I did this? What if I did that? So obviously I was always getting in trouble. And so as I got to the 6th grade, I remember very vividly, this picture on the screen is, guess who's the yellow light bulb? That's me. I was not like everybody else. I was the yellow light bulb. I was in the 6th grade, I remember. My mom can probably tell you this. 6th grade, I'm literally tearing up the entire classroom. I mean, here's this guy, William, what are you doing? What's wrong? What's next? But what was happening here is this creativity was oozing out of me, and I couldn't control it. And so my teacher looked at me and said, we've got to do something with you. So picks up the phone, calls my mom and says, William is literally destroying everything. And she said to the teacher, she said, well, what is he doing? She said, well, he's disrupting the class. He's, when he finishes his work, he's just tearing up everything. She said, wait a minute. You said when he finishes his work. She said, yeah, he does everything. He's got straight A's. He does everything so quickly, but we don't know what to do with him after he finishes. So when he finishes, he just destroys everything. My mom simply said, give him more work. Give him more things to do. Let's entertain his creativity. And that was when my potential was recognized. It was this young kid who had so much energy and thought about so many different things that they couldn't control it. And so what I decided to do at that point was to lean into the things that I thought I was good at. So as I continued through middle school and elementary, I really started to think about what the next steps were for me. And that's when you see the creativity starting to come out. You start to see this guy who now started to learn about himself. Started to play football. I love sports. So I started to use that energy in sports. I started to, the bottom right-hand corner is me with the grin on my face because I was going to a concert in my middle school to play a trumpet solo. And I was so happy. My mom bought me this suit, this black pinstripe suit that I wore, and I was going to be highlighted as this trumpet player playing George Benson song as a soloist. And I was like, yes. But what was starting to happen here at this time was this whole idea of what can William McNeely do and become? You see, I grew up in the 70s. I grew up in the 70s and 80s. And this was a time where there was forced busing in Charlotte. If you remember that 1972 Charlotte was forced to bus the west side of Charlotte to other parts of the city. So William McNeely and his family growing up on the west side of Charlotte was now bused to Carmel and South Meck. So here's a young kid growing up on the west side of Charlotte getting now bused to South Meck and Carmel, not even knowing where those parts of the city were. So I'm jumping on the bus, riding 35 to 40 minutes to Carmel Middle School. And I remember very vividly going there. My mom said, look, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen when you go over there. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to take advantage of everything that comes to you. Everything. So whether that's leadership, whether that's academics, whether that's whatever it is, I want you to take advantage of it. And we did. 4 of us, 4 kids, older brother. I'm kind of in the middle, 2 older brothers, 1 younger sister. And every one of us coming from the west side of Charlotte started to take advantage of everything we could. Everything. 2 older brothers became the first black drum majors at South Meck. I'm sorry, it's wrong. 2 older brothers became the first company commanders in ROTC at South Mecklenburg. the only less than 5% of African Americans at South Meck at the time. Those two, right behind each other, became the first ROTC commanders. I started playing trumpet early in middle school and became one of the first black drum majors at South Meck. My sister, who is not here, was great in sports, started playing basketball and doing the things. One of the things we started to see was this whole idea around competing. We said to ourselves that we can compete. And so at that point, the switch kind of flipped. It was like, wait a minute, we can do these things. We have access to these things. We can become who we want to become if we only see the things that we can become. And that was when the potential for all four of us started to change. From there, we started to go to schools that we probably shouldn't have. My oldest brother he was accepted into NC State. Next brother came through, and all of a sudden he's at UNC Chapel Hill. I'm next. I decide, okay, let me follow them. I head to NC State as well, and my younger sister heads to East Carolina. Now, wait a minute. Here are 4 kids from the west side of Charlotte. What is it? Why is this happening? What is it that flipped the switch that said that you could do this? And so we spent many years trying to figure that out, trying to understand what it is and what it was. And finally, going to NC State, majoring in mechanical engineering, which I definitely shouldn't have been in. Okay, I tell you right now, I am not an engineer. My wife is, but I'm not. So as I'm at NC State, I'm starting to understand that, okay, well, there's something different about me here. My mom used to tell me I was undisciplined because my older brothers were all ROTC. They were buttoned up, ready to go. And here comes William McNeely. Now I'm undisciplined because I don't fit in. But what I found at that point at NC State was, engineering is not for me. But there's this idea that I learned about potential energy. What is this energy that's built up inside of me that's getting compressed every time it's compressing and compressing, and the challenges of life are just compressing against me. What happens if that's released? What can I become if I don't have those type of challenges? And so I started to look at some creative opportunities for me. I started to look at where is it that I am going to excel. It ended up, I started moving over into computer technology and found my rhythm, found this idea around how can I take technology that I love and incorporate that into business. And who am I going to work for at this time that can handle that? Well, it was Apple. So here I am in college and I'm thinking, I'm going to work for Apple. Everybody around me is looking at me like I'm crazy. They're like, well, how are you going to work for Apple? They're in California. I don't know. I have no idea how I'm going to do it, but I believe I have the potential to do it. So my mind was, let's see, how can I make this happen? One of the things that I had a chance to do my last semester of college was to intern. And for me, there was only one place I was going to intern, and that was Apple. So I unknowingly, because I just, had no limitations, decided that I was going to work at Apple. Came back to Charlotte, knocked on a couple of doors and said, I want to work for Apple. You sell Apple's products, so I'm going to work for you, and I'm going to do it free. I don't want any money. All I want is experience. I don't want any money, but I want to make sure that I work for Apple. So intentionally, I started this job. I don't know who's from Charlotte here, but there used to be a computer land on Tyvola Road, and they sold Apple products. So I walked into there, told the guy I was going to sell the product. He said, nobody's here doing it, so you can do it. And in my mind, I said, somebody at some point from Apple is going to walk in that door. And when they did, they're going to see this little black kid over in the back working, selling that product. And they did. District manager walked in and said, who is that guy? And he said, I don't know. He just came from down here and said he wanted to work, so we put him to work. That point was when he's, okay, initiative, knowledge, why don't you intern for a semester? Had a chance to do that. And the story, and I guess the moral of that story is when you put yourself in situations, great things happen. And so I put myself in that situation intentionally. And from that, had a chance to intern and cover sales role, account manager. But I was so young. I was only 22, 23 years old at that time, maybe a little older. And then had a chance to intern, job shadow. And then luckily, the young lady who I was working with had to go out on maternity leave. She was a 15-year Apple vet at that time, and there was only one person that knew how to do her job. It was the young kid over there in the customer support. And I was moved in that position and worked most of my career there. So those were the things that I think, as I understood my potential, started to happen. And so as I spent many, many years doing that, there was now this time in my life that I literally had to think about what was next. Loved what I was doing, loved working in technology, loved the impact that I thought I was making in the community, loved everything about it, the creativity, the environment. But I got to that point where I wrote that why statement. I got to that point where I didn't understand what was next. And all of a sudden, as I was doing studying, this sentence all of a sudden came to me. I wrote it down and it says, commit to doing something greater that will keep giving you when you are no longer able to give. Now, when you are a vibrant, middle-aged kids in college, having fun, coaching football, all the fun things that you do in life, when you write something like this, you have no idea where it comes from. Like, what am I writing this? I'm not going anywhere. So why am I writing that I need to commit to something, doing something greater that will give when I'm no longer here, because I'm not going anywhere? And so as I really started to think about this, I started to think about the impact that I had made. What did it mean? How was it going to impact people if I'm no longer here? And right after I did this, 2016, I came down with idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. So I don't know how or why I wrote this before then or why it came up. I do kind of know it was this divine feeling inside of me that said something was about to happen. 2016, I'm running all around Charlotte, running around the country, coaching football. And all of a sudden, I come down with idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. My entire body quit. This disease had been in my body for a long time. My lungs were scarred. And all of a sudden, it activated one day. So as I was normal one day, the next day I was on oxygen 24/7. All the time. Wherever I went for the next 3 years. And so for 3 years, I had this idea around, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing? How can I now take this obstacle that's literally destroying my body and turn that into something positive? And so this is the outcome. So being in technology, I had a chance to talk to doctors and they were saying, hey, this is something that's terminal. And so one day I was literally looking at my chart and it had these 3 letters on it. Now, being in technology, I know what this is, okay? I don't know if you know when you see EOL, but we in technology, when you're at the end of a technology cycle of your computer, you say this computer is EOL, it's end of life. And so as I was going through positive, pulling oxygen, 3 tanks, I looked at my chart one day and it had EOL on it. Now, doctors they don't say this. They don't say to you that, okay, you're just living out the rest of your life. But I looked at it and I said, what is this? What is EOL? And I said, what do they mean? I'm end of life. And so from that point on, I started to think about, okay, if I've got, several years to go, what is it that I'm gonna do to make an impact on the lives of others? How can I take the obstacles that I had right now and turn that into something positive? How can I take the passion that I have and turn it into a purpose? Because I didn't necessarily know what it was. And so I think when you start to think about passion and purpose and potential, it's like potential needs to have this purpose behind it. And so I had realized the potential in my life, but I hadn't realized what my actual purpose was all about. What was it that I was supposed to actually be doing to impact other people? And so once I saw that, all of a sudden, 3 years later, it's 2019, and they tell me it's over. Your pulmonary fibrosis is incurable, and now you you're in your last weeks. And so what you see here is you see me in the hospital. You see, what you don't see is right before this, 2 weeks before this, I walk into the doctor's office. Doctor says, well, William, great, you've been in rehab, it was at Duke Medical Center. You've been in rehab, but now you've got about 2 weeks to go. And I said, 2 weeks, what do you mean? He said, well, I mean, there's two things can happen in 2 weeks. It's either that you won't be strong enough to do anything or receive a transplant, or in 2 weeks you just won't be here. Because every time that I would wake up, I could tell that, you know what, I'm lucky to even be alive because I don't know how I made it through that night. So anytime that this time I could have not awakened. But there was one thing that happened here, and I think it's important. I think it's extremely important. When the doctor told me that I had 2 weeks to go, I didn't hear it. I didn't hear what he said. And what I mean by that is that most people, when you tell them some news like that, they're going to break down. They're going, what? I can't believe it. What I heard was, okay, 2 weeks. That means we got 2 weeks to figure this thing out. It's like I got 2 weeks to go, but I don't have 2 weeks to live. I have 2 weeks to figure this out. And literally, I talked to the doctor. I said, well, what are we going to do? And I think I wrote something down because I told him, I said, I've got stuff to do. I said, there's no way I can go anywhere because I have stuff to do. And one of the images that's not on here that I remember very vividly is that when they were taking me back for the transplant, on my lap was an iPad. And I had been working and doing thinking and visioning, and I had this iPad on my lap. And when they rolled me back to the doctor, rolled me back for surgery, a 15-hour surgery for a lung transplant, I had the vision for Do Greater on my iPad. They had to take it away from me. And I told them, give me that iPad back when I wake up. And they did. Now, it took me a couple of days to wake up, and it took me a couple of days to get back on my feet, but they gave me the iPad back. I was visioning at the time, at my lowest time, looking forward to what my preferred future would be. At the time when I should not have been. I should have been worried about the surgery. I should have been worried about if I'm going to get up the next day. But I was literally thinking about what I was going to do and the impact that I was going to make after I woke up. And I did wake up. Took me 3 weeks to get my bearings back together. Double lung transplant. You see me here. Everything is off when you get a transplant. Everything. You wake up and you don't know. Your body is trying to figure out what's going on. I've got something in me that's foreign. I'm fighting it to get it out. All these things happen through the process. And now I am thinking, what is the next steps for me? Took about 3 or 4 weeks out of the hospital, post-rehab, back in rehab again, trying to get stronger, trying to get back out in the community, and was allowed to leave after about 8 weeks out of the hospital. Now, that was supposed to be 6 to 8 months. 8 weeks, I was out of the hospital, back in Charlotte, and I was at a Charlotte's Creative morning that Friday pitching Do Greater Charlotte. Now, I probably shouldn't have been. My doctor probably would have said, well, are you crazy? 300 people and you're out? But I'm literally there saying, I know what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's all about this idea around doing greater things. And so when you look at that, I would always ask myself, why do I have a second chance? Why is it me that was put in that position? Remember, I was told I had 2 weeks to live on a Thursday. Saturday, I was being transplanted. Now, there are people on the transplant list that have been there for years. 3 days, there were lungs for me. 3 days, the lungs had to be massaged and made smaller to fit my body because they wanted to keep me alive. And it was so for me, it was, why is it that I have a second chance? What is it that I'm supposed to be doing? And I went right back to that red thread I talked about earlier. What's missing in the community? What is it that I see that I could learn from for my entire career, my entire upbringing? When I learned what up starts for me, how can I create that same environment for other people, for other students? And so as crazy as I am, I said, I'm going to try something. I'm going to try to create an organization that literally provides what I was provided when I was growing up. And that is this place that harbors potential. Where is it that now that we can create a space that facilitates and empowers our youth and enhances their potential? How can we create something that starts to bring together what we call these opportunities of connectedness, these creative collisions that we can bring for under-resourced communities in proximity with adults, creative adults, to start this economic mobility? How can we create spaces for that? And one of the first things we did was a truck. Now, who would think about this? A truck. So we said, okay, one of the biggest problems that we see in Charlotte is we got tons of kids out there, but they can't get to these great programs. So how do we create a program to take to the kids, to provide them with this type of technology that they could literally experience right in their own neighborhoods? So coming out of surgery, my wife and I we looked for a truck. We said, we have to find a truck. Let's fill this truck with technology. Let's build a rolling Apple store. And let's take it inside neighborhoods and start teaching kids all about technology, all about creativity. How can we create the next generation of content creators? How can we create these creative people who now can change the world? We'll do it right out of a truck. And started taking this into neighborhoods, being extremely resourceful, driving around Charlotte, looking for a truck, knocking on doors saying, I want that truck. Talking to people, I need iPads, I need this. And in a couple of months, 6 months post-surgery, we had this truck built and we were taking it out into communities. Now, this was 2019. And so in 2020, March, we all know what happened, COVID. So we had just built this truck, taken it out into communities. 2020, COVID hits, and you can't put 15 kids in the back of a truck. So what is it now? What is the next thing that we do? And the next thing was taking the learnings of Do Greater and this truck and turning that into now this physical space. What did we learn? We learned a couple things. We learned, one, kids in under-resourced communities and young adults don't have access to technology and tools. We learned that from COVID, because when you send kids home out of school to learn, they cannot enhance their creativity at home because their environment is not conducive for that. So my son came home from college. He had a chance to spend time in my house, and we created this environment for him. But the kids we work with don't have that. So how can we create the same type of process for those kids? And so what we did was we started to talk to people. We said, what if we turn the first floor of a church into an innovation lab? Now, people looked at us like we were crazy because we're in a traditional Baptist church. How can you turn that into an innovation lab? Plus, you're only one person, you had a lung transplant, and you have no money. But what we saw when we walked into the bottom of that church, we saw 8,000 square feet of space that we could use to build these collisions with kids. And at that time, we started to knock on people's doors. And I see David King in the back from Gresham Smith. We had one of their designers call us and say, we want to help. And Gresham Smith and the designer designed the entire space, the entire 8,000 square feet that now we operate as an innovation lab for youth on the west side. I see one of our DJs in the back as well, who has learned DJing in our space, because we are turning kids into entrepreneurs. We are taking kids and now creating this entrepreneurial mindset that now that will take them further in their creative thinking, their problem-solving skills, all of these things that we utilize in our spaces and these soft skills that will help them going forward, we now activate that in a space that they can call home. A space that looks like this. Not a space that you would see in a neighborhood that we activate in, but a space that looks just like this. Why can't our kids in our neighborhood have spaces like this? And why? And as a person who grew up in that neighborhood, it's my responsibility to make it happen, which answered the question why I have a second chance. So we are building these spaces that look just like this inside communities where you would not find them. It gives our kids a sense of belonging. And so we activate hundreds of kids, over 400, 500 kids in the first year and a half in this space. over 4,000 creative adults have been through our space in the basement of a church. So there's something happening here. We say, what is it that we need? And so again, you see at the bottom left-hand corner, these are some of our core values. Doubt the default. You know, in our minds, it's like, okay, if there's the default here, how can we take that and flip it? And so what we said was, okay, let's build a space uptown. Nobody thinks we could do this. Why can't kids that we work with activate in the uptown ecosystem? What does it take for us to do that? We saw this 20,000 square foot space sitting there empty. And we said, you know what? That's our next creative lab right there. And so we started this whole entire process now to turn this space into an ecosystem for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs, opportunity youth who are developing their skills as content creators, and a full production studio inside a 20,000 square foot space. Why not? What if we could do this? What if we could take kids from the west side of Charlotte and create a Ray Ward in the bottom of this space? What would it look like if we had 15 kids that are doing real work for the community? What would it look like if we had kids all over Charlotte activating in pop-ups and becoming entrepreneurs, selling their own products, going from idea to implementation? What would it look like if we did that? This is the space that we're building now. Gresham Smith is, again, back as a partner, because we're creating this space to activate just like creative adults will. Okay, so this is coffee shop. Ingerly Coffee's here. Coffee shop here. Activation, community, all in one space where our kids have this opportunity. Production studio, all in the basement where we produce content that our kids now can monetize, all in a 20,000 square foot space. This is our staff, 7 people focused on building the next generation of entrepreneurs. So what I say is this: where are you in your journey? Where are you in your impactful journey? And I'll tell one quick story that I learned through my process of having a transplant. I remember in the middle of my journey, the 3 years that I was carrying oxygen tanks, and toward the end, I went to Savannah, Georgia, visit my brother who was there. And I was in Savannah, Georgia. I wanted to go see, I don't know if you've ever been there, there's this famous fountain in Forsyth Park. And I'm there, parked my car. My wife is not with me. She's normally with me, particularly when I was carrying an oxygen tank. Parked my car up front, and I start the journey down to see the fountain. I'm literally walking, and I'm pulling my oxygen tank as I go down down toward the fountain. And I see everything. I notice everything. My image and my senses are really high at this point. And I'm noticing things. I'm noticing flowers. I'm noticing folks over here playing tennis. I'm noticing, literally guys on the bench sleep. Everything I'm noticing, because I was in the beginning of my journey. It's like when I was in life, you're in this beginning of your journey, you notice everything, you see everything because everything is fresh. And for me, that was what was happening as I was going through this process. But as I got closer and closer to the fountain, I started to get tired. I could see my goal, but I started to get tired. And what I started to do was speed up. So I started to speed up because I wanted to get to my goal faster. Literally, I'm sitting there, I'm pulling my tank and I'm moving faster. And what I started to do was not notice anything else. All I noticed was the fountain. I had to get there. And when I got there, just like our lives, we all have that point in time where we're trying to get someplace. I got to the fountain, and when I got there, I was like, is this it? I thought it was something else, A beautiful fountain, but I had spent so much energy trying to get there. When I got there, I wasn't impressed. But what happened to me at that time when I got there and I saw that, I had to think. I said, okay, wait a minute. Why did I make that journey and why am I here? Now, what am I going to do to get back? So I started this journey back, long way in my car. And like I said, my wife is normally with me. She normally helps me pull the tank. I'm halfway back and my tank is in the red. Now, I know when my tank is in the red, I know exactly how much time I have. Because I've been in situations where I've almost ran out of oxygen. My wife is running back to the car, get another tank, bring it back out, hook it back up, and allowing me to breathe. I am there by myself. My tank is in the red. what do I do? What do I do during this crisis of belief? I have to believe that I can make it back, but I have to do certain things to be able to do that. And so what I had to do was I had to calm down. I had to calm down. I had to take deep breaths. I had to really get back to that entire focus initially around I could experience everything and calm my body down. That's where I was before I started to do greater. It was that red line in my tank. It was the fact that I had to do something to calm myself down to understand what the next purpose for my life is. And what I ask you guys today, is your tank in the red? Are you at that point where you need to slow down and start to think about what your impact is going to be? How can you now create an environment that enhances potential in folks that you come in contact with, your staff, your family, folks that you work with? How now can you make that impact? And so for us, we will continue to do that. I will continue to live out the rest of my days impacting the lives of others. I believe that I have a long time to go. I've celebrated 5 years now in March. And so 5, 15, 20, 25 years of survival. There are people out there with 30 years. I think I'm going to be one of those folks because I do believe I'm here for a reason. And I do believe the next steps for us is to continue to do greater things to impact the lives of others. Thank you.